Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I'd like to introduce your host for today's conference, Mr. Leland Milstein. Sir, you may begin.
Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for joining us today for the ACT webcast. The ACT Thursday webcast series is a bi-monthly webcast held at the lunch hour. The trainings leverage local successes by amplifying to a larger audience two model organizations' methods, materials, and approaches. Sessions are planned to last no more than 1 hour, with two presenters speaking on the same topic from slightly different perspectives, each for 10 to 15 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of questions and answers. This session is approved by the ISA for 1 CEU hour and by SAF for 1 CFE Category 2. If you haven't already given me your certification number, you can just email it to me after this session. Also, most state landscape architecture boards require only a certificate of completion, which ACT can provide to anyone who requests one. So again, just email me after the session if you would like one of those. This is a program of the Alliance for Community Trees. If you're not a member already, I would encourage you to consider joining. Nonprofits and public agencies across the country are ACT members, and there are a whole host of benefits, including these webcasts. I want to thank our sponsors today, the Home Depot Foundation and the USDA Forest Service, and our presenters. Today's session is Tree Technology Part 2, CRMs. The volume of information we'd like to track can be overwhelming. Which volunteers will attend this weekend's events? What are the demographics of my supporters? Am I properly leveraging the time, talents, and financial support of my members? Why does someone donate to my organization? And on and on. Similarly, there are a variety of methods to track all these metrics. A commercial sector strategy for consolidating constituent data into one place and making systems work together has been gaining popularity in the nonprofit sector recently. It's called Constituent Relationship Management, or CRM. CRM is the set of processes and supporting technologies used to acquire, retain, and enhance constituent relationships. Ultimately, enhancing the constituent relationship can mean increasing event attendance, volunteerism, supporter satisfaction, and even donation amounts and frequency. All help to advance your mission. Here with us today to talk a little bit about their experience with CRM is Paige Van Riper and also Joe Wilson. First up today will be Paige, who is Director of Engagement and Technology at Tree People in Beverly Hills. For the organization's regional initiative, Paige oversees the Community Engagement Manager, who's often the first point of contact with the community, and also the Volunteer Manager, who coordinates thousands of volunteers for planting and tree care events, as well as Tree People's 2 regional managers who engage specific underserved geographic regions. Paige also oversees the organization's relationship with Department of Parks and Recreation, Million Trees LA, and related partner groups like the Los Angeles Conservation Corps. In addition, she heads up all new technology initiatives and supervises Tree People's Salesforce data specialist. Paige has more than 15 years' experience in nonprofit management with an emphasis on volunteer management and marketing and communications, and she holds a dual degree in international relations and East Asian area studies from USC. So clearly, Paige knows a lot about managing constituents, whether it's volunteers, donors, and all the technology that requires. So thanks for being with us today, Paige.
Thank you. So CRM, some of you might think, what's that got to do with trees, and what the heck is CRM? So as Leland talked a little bit about, it's constituent relationship management. It's a fancy name for a database that helps you to track and enhance your relationships, really, with constituents. So I want to just give you an overview of kind of what I was going to present today. Just a real brief background on Tree People, just to give you an idea of our size and kind of scope of our data. Why do tree groups need to consider CRM? A little bit about our selection process and how we got to where we did, and then I'll show you some examples of how we use our CRM system, and then finally just a little bit about some things to look for when you're choosing a CRM system. So let's get started here with Tree People. We're one of the oldest tree groups. We're a 37-year-old nonprofit. We currently have 64 staff members, and our programs include tree planting and care, restoration, education, and fruit distribution, among others. Currently, we have about 78,000 contact records, and contact records would be a record of an individual person. We have about 9,200 plus organization records, and that can be anything from a corporation to a nonprofit organization that we partner with, or even a community group. And then we have about 260,000 donation records as well, with both our regular donations and our tree dedications. And prior, just to give you a little bit of a picture, prior to us implementing our CRM system, we had at least a dozen different databases. Every department had at least one of their own. They were in everything from Excel to a really old version of FileMaker Pro that they didn't even support anymore, to Donor Perfect. None of these systems talk to each other. They were in varying states of having dirty data, and we, for instance, couldn't even tell if one department was working at the same school as another department, and they might bump into each other on campus, and that's how they would know, oh, you're working here? Oh, we're doing some work here too. So kind of a mess, and that was when I walked into Tree People a little over 4 years ago, and I started off with saying, oh my gosh, this volunteer database we have is atrocious. We have no idea if these people ever volunteered or not. We just know their name and address and phone number. So, so let me just go a little bit through what the situation was at the time. But before I do that, let's talk about why CRM. Part of it is getting out what's in our brains into a system, so that when one of us, moves on to a new job, isn't here anymore, that we've been able to capture the information that they had in their brain about our relationships with various entities. And we ran into this a lot when I first started. It was like, okay, if you want to know about that, you need to go talk to so-and-so. And, oh, so-and-so would have known that, but they're not here anymore. So staff had a lot in their brains, but there was nowhere that it was on paper. And so when they left, we lost all of that. Another thing is we've always valued that we are what we refer to as a high-touch organization. And, that's kind of been our appeal, I think, to a lot of people, is that, we're not, this organization that just is an automated, phone call to you, that we're actually out there interacting. But able to do that, we needed the technology behind it to make us more efficient, so that we could free up our time to be that high-touch organization and weren't doing, routine tasks. And then the other thing is to be able to track what connections people had to other people, and to kind of track that all the way through, so that it's kind of that 6 degrees of separation thing. If we want to get to Kevin Bacon, who do we know that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows Kevin Bacon eventually? And actually in our world of LA and needing to get celebrities to get some attention, that's actually not far from the truth. I remember at one point we were trying to figure out if we had any connection to Al Gore, because we wanted to try and engage him, but that was before we had the system. So those are kind of some of the whys. In terms of Tree People's process, we actually recognized that it wasn't just a CRM system we needed. We didn't know exactly what we needed. So we brought in some consultants who interviewed key staff and who really looked at what we were doing and how we were doing it, and they put together a tech plan. So the technology plan identified that the CRM system was our top need. So we knew that was the first thing we needed to have in place before we could put in place some of the other technology that they had recommended. And then they went ahead, and after that was identified, then we brought someone in who helped us to summarize what our needs were for CRM. One that was that we wanted all data in one place. I know some folks have CRM systems maybe just for their volunteers, but they have a different system for their donors, and they have a different, they might not even have a system for some of their other constituents. But we really wanted a complete picture of our whole relationship with that person, regardless of whether they were a donor, a volunteer, a government partner, et cetera. We wanted, like I said, a full picture of our constituents, who they are, who do they work for, what boards are they on, all of the touch points that we might have with them. We wanted it to be our staff, quite a few of them are out in the field a lot, so we wanted this system to be accessible from a computer anywhere. And we also we only have a part-time IT person, so we didn't want to have to maintain the system ourselves and maintain the security of it. So we needed to look for something that was in the cloud. And we, of course, wanted all of that data to be secure. We have a lot of confidential data in there. And finally, we wanted it to be able to connect eventually to our website, which was our kind of second phase of our technology plan. So we needed a system that could eventually do that. So once we reviewed all that and looked at what was out there, the solution we finally came up with for us is Salesforce. Salesforce is, in the cloud, as the graphic suggests here, and the great thing is that they maintain the security and they maintain the system. We don't have to, but we have full access to our data, and also Salesforce for us, part of what why we chose it is because they have a lot of other applications that are built into Salesforce that you can download and put into Salesforce to do a number of other things, such as emailing, kind of doing blast emails. We've got one that does helps us to do mail merges and email merges. So there's and they're constantly adding to this. There's literally thousands of these applications. So that was part of what we were looking for in a company that was sort of growing and expanding. And so about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we implemented Salesforce, and we've never looked back. Now, I'm not here today to sell you guys on Salesforce. I mean, everybody's got different needs, and you really need to go through the process yourself. But I wanted to show you a little bit about how we're using it. And we're actually not the only tree group using it. The group in Portland, Oregon is using it, as well as the group in Iowa. And I know I'll get their names wrong, so I'm not going to say them. But we've actually had some kind of mini webinars amongst ourselves to see how each other is using it and to see if we can pick up tips from the others. So how we use Salesforce. This is kind of the home screen that you would see when you log into Salesforce. So you can see the tabs up near the top. We have, our contacts in there. We have all of our organizations in there. The thing called campaigns. Campaigns are everything from our tree planting projects to actual marketing campaigns that we do with our e-newsletters. We have all of our donations in there. One of the great things about Salesforce is they have a very robust dashboard. It's one thing to have a lot of data sitting in a database. It's another thing to really be able to see and interact with it, and that's been huge for us. Obviously, we have the ability to pull reports. We actually have, for our fruit tree distribution program, we have our plant inventory in there. So we know how many fruit trees that we have currently, and we know how many we've distributed and how many are remaining. And then there's some of the other tools that we use, some of the applications like Conga Merge and Exact Target. I'll touch on those briefly in a minute. So in terms of relationships, and here's my record. So I can go in there and indicate that Lel Van Riper is my mother, and my son and husband volunteer quite a bit, so they're both in there. And a good friend of mine is a member, so that's all really handy information to know, and I could easily click over and then see who those people know and who those people know. So that's a really nice feature for us. I also can track, in addition to what organization they work for, we can track what other organizations that they are involved with. If they're on the board of another nonprofit, if, for example, this is again mine, I'm a parent, my child goes to Open Charter Magnet School, which is a school that we do work with. So that's handy to know who's connected to that school, but that's not their main workplace. And so we can have a limited number of those in the system. Another thing is employment. Like I mentioned, we can track where they work, and for instance, here's Tree People's record. So we have all of our employees in there that are connected to the Tree People record. So we can run a list of all the different employees we know at a given organization and see what their titles are, and we've got their contact information and all of that. And the other great thing is you can have parent organizations. So for instance, we work with, a good example is Disney. So we've got the corporate headquarters that we work with, but we work with a number of other divisions that are under the corporate headquarters. So we can lay out that whole hierarchy and figure that out. For government contacts, this is really helpful. Donations, like I mentioned, that's another thing that we have transferred all of that over, and so we can track everything from memberships to grants to our tree dedications, and all of that's in here. And you can see a history of their giving, and you can even, put your pledges that you haven't received yet, and you can use this to manage, okay, so-and-so hasn't paid their pledge yet. We're going to reach out to them. I can run a report of everybody who hasn't done that yet. Like I mentioned, blast emails are a big thing for us, and the system we're using, we can see when it was sent. We can see if they opened it. So shame on me, I didn't open Forest Day July 2010, but I'd already read it. We can see if they clicked on things and how many things they clicked on. So it really gives you an idea of how engaged these folks are with us, and what newsletters we can even run on the back end. What the response rate was to a given newsletter. How many folks did one get open more than another? Did one have more clicks? We could even test out 2 different emails to see which was more effective. So there's a lot in that. And participation. So this is how we can track who is volunteering on our projects. And this actually is directly linked to our website. So people can go onto our website, create a profile, and then start signing themselves up for projects. And that feeds directly into Salesforce. So our volunteer manager doesn't have to manually enter every one of those people. And we can see it all right there. And then if you clicked over to, say, the first person, Michelle Abiera's record, then you could see all the different things she volunteered for with us. And we can also track no-shows. So sent means that they said they were coming, but if they didn't actually attend, then it stays sent. If they attended, then it says responded here. So we know we can track our no-show rate. We can track people that tend to not show a lot. We have a big flake factor here in Los Angeles. So another thing is we can track the work we've done at different sites. So here's a park. So we can track that we've done 2 planting events and a tree care event, and we also planted some fruit trees there and did a fruit tree distribution. So all of that's in there. If you clicked into those records, you could see how many of what species of trees we planted, of what size, that kind of thing. That's all right there. You can see the whole history of what we've done. So here's, like I said, we've got the botanical name and the common name of the trees we planted, the size, and even the source where they came from. So that's really helpful. And as I mentioned before, we actually we use an inventory program for, eventually we're going to use it for all the trees that we have up in our nursery. Right now we're mainly using it for our fruit tree distribution program. So I can see in there that we still have 183 apple trees left that we could distribute to groups. And so we can go in there and do that and just see, in the moment exactly what our inventory is. And like I said, we've got, some dashboards to really visually, and I know a lot of people like me are visual, so we can see in here, here's our different volunteer trainings we offer and how many folks were trained in that in a given period of time. And then here's, how many individual volunteers, once they got trained, how many events they did with us. Any number of things you can imagine you can do a dashboard for. We can also generate forms with the click of a button. So right here, I have the sign-in sheet. So this happens to be for a planting project. So if I just click that button, it takes all the folks that are already signed in, takes all their contact information, and plugs it into our sign-in sheet. And we can print that out. And then all volunteers have to do is check their information, sign in, and they're ready to go. And we also have our site visit info sheet. So for this particular site, we could generate that and make some notes on there, but it would pre-populate some of the information. So that's really a big time saver. And there's an added bonus I just want to make you aware of with Salesforce, and I wouldn't say we're using it a whole lot yet because only about half of our staff has Salesforce licenses at this point. I hope to change that eventually. But they just debuted something called Chatter in the last 6 months or so. And Chatter, as you can see, looks very much like Facebook. It's kind of like a combo between Facebook and Twitter in many respects, and so people can create a profile for themselves. And this is particularly useful for bigger organizations. I would say if you're a pretty small organization, you're probably talking to each other plenty. But this would allow you to to track certain records, and it would inform you if somebody makes a change in that record or has an interaction with that record. It also allows you to chatter amongst yourselves about a given topic. You can group like your department, and they can put chatter. This happens to be, I actually am the Salesforce user group leader, nonprofit user group leader for Los Angeles, and this is, so I have another version of Salesforce for running my user group, and this is some of the other user group leaders. So, you know, I can see what they're up to. I can see that there's a new form out there that, in case I need that. So it's really, I think, and this is just the beginning for them, and they're going to be adding so much into this. So I view it as a intranet on steroids, really. It just has a lot of possibility there. So for those of you that are thinking, yeah, and I would say, even if you're an organization of one, I remember when I first was talking to Jared about this topic, and he's like, well, you know, we have a lot of smaller organizations. And I said, that is the time to put this in place, because if you wait until you're our size and have been in business for as long as we have, it's a huge undertaking to put one of these systems in place. You know, it took us a very long time, and we had a lot of data that had to be cleaned up and loaded, and we're still cleaning up data. So I would say start early, and like I said, even if you're a staff of one, this helps you to keep track of things, so it doesn't all have to stay in your brain and you try and remember it. But how to go about choosing a CRM system? There's a whole bunch of them out there, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages and strengths and weaknesses. There's no one perfect system. But the first thing you need to do is figure out what your requirements are, and you need to figure out what they're likely to be for the next, 5 or 10 years if you can project ahead, because you need a system that you're going to grow into. You want to look at the company that you're potentially going with, and if you can get their financials, if you can, see how stable they are. Are they on the verge of bankruptcy? Are they about to go out of business? Or are they growing? That kind of thing. You need to make sure that you will have full control and ownership of your data, and that's another reason we went with Salesforce. Is we were in a situation, we have a data entry partner who was maintaining all of our donor data for us, but anytime we wanted to pull a report, we had to pay them to do it, and we really didn't have ownership of that donor data, which was not a good situation. So you want to make sure that that will be the case. And how user-friendly is it? Depending on your staff, I know we have some folks who are very tech-savvy and can pick up on anything, and we have some who really barely touch their computers. So you need to look at, the system. I would say in our case, Salesforce is super user-friendly, which really helps some of our staff. How much training will your staff need to operate the system? For something like Razor's Edge, which is a great system, you've got to really go to some training and be up to date on that stuff. You can't just jump in and play around in it. So factor that in as well. And what resources will you need to start and in the longer term to maintain your system? I think that was one of the things, I knew we were going to need a resource long-term once we had the system in place to maintain it, but it took me a while to convince others of that here. And now we finally do have our Salesforce data specialist, but, you need to think about that. These systems don't just maintain themselves. You've got to put some work in, and how much, how many hours of someone's time is that? Is that just an add-on to a job of someone that's there, or is that something additional? Other factors for choosing a CRM, can it and do you need it to integrate with other systems? For example, with Salesforce, it can integrate with almost anything. So I mentioned that we have it integrated with our website right now. We could eventually, if we wanted to, integrate it with our accounting system, and that is a path we may go down at some point. So that, to me, eventually I'd love to get everything talking to each other amongst our systems. I think that would only benefit us. Is there an active community that's adding to the product and improving it? If it's an open source product, is there a pretty active user community that's continually improving it? I mean, for Salesforce, they have 3 releases a year of new features that people have asked for. So that was, again, a big factor for us. If it's web-based, and if that's important to you that's web-based, was it designed to be web-based or was it converted? Because frequently things that were used to be desktop-based and they made them web-based they're not as good in the web-based environment as those that were designed from the very beginning to be web-based. How is the security of your data maintained? You want to make sure that, people can't hack in and start getting, key data for your donors and volunteers and folks. And can you easily import and export data from it? So those are definitely some things you should think about. So that's pretty much it for my presentation today. I'm happy later on to answer questions and all, and here's my contact information. And again, I want to mention that also the group in Portland, Oregon is using it, as well as a group in Iowa. And there also would be great resources if you have specific questions about Salesforce.
And thanks, Paige. Those would be Friends of Trees and Trees Forever in Iowa.
Thank you. I always get them wrong.
Problem. That was great. Thank you so much for a very thorough presentation. And actually, instead of answering questions later, I think we're going to do it right now. So, Nikki, if you could open the lines for questions.
If you would like to ask a question, please press *1. Please unmute your phone. Record your name clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. To withdraw your question, please press *2. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1. And please stand by for the first question.
Great. And I also want to let everyone know that if you are public speaking shy, you can type your question in over the web by clicking on that Q&A tab at the top of your window. Type your question in to me, and I will ask it for you. So while people are generating their questions, Paige, I just wanted to get started with, you mentioned how important it is to be user-friendly, and you found Salesforce very user-friendly. You do have a lot of experience with technology, and so I was wondering how the other members of your staff found it.
I think everybody found it. In some cases, it's almost too user-friendly to administer it. So in the beginning, against our consultants' advice, we were like, oh, let's change this field and let's add that, and not fully understanding what we were doing on the back end until finally our IT guy said, you guys are kind of making a mess in there. So, and even though I'm the director of technology, I wouldn't consider myself, I'm not someone who knows programming or any of that. And in terms of administering, you don't need to know most of that. I can't write code. But yeah, I think our staff has found this to be a system that they can just get in and start using.
Great. And then I guess part of that might be how have you found that people use the Salesforce not in the office? I know you mentioned it's being in the cloud.
Hello?
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 That's interesting.
Paige?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Maybe I can just ask the operator quickly. I want to make sure everybody can still hear us. Nikki?
Yes, everybody can still hear you.
All right, great. So, Paige, my question was just that you mentioned that having a system that is in the cloud and can be accessed remotely, not just from one computer in an office, a consideration people might want to take into account. And so I was wondering how you found that your staff uses it outside of the office.
Quite a few of them work from home at different points, and so as long as you have an internet connection, you can just log in and fill out information. And Salesforce actually even has some mobile applications. We're not actively using those, although we do have a very tech-savvy founder, Andy Lipkiss, who loves new technology, and he is definitely on his PDA a lot, and so we're probably going to be enabling it a little bit more for him. But yeah, I mean, I've even gone into a library when I needed to just quickly look something up and logged onto a computer there, and with it does have. I mean, the good thing is it does require you to authenticate that computer, so you can't just if someone stole your password, you couldn't do that. It has to send you an email, which you then have to click in to get on a new computer and a new connection. But I could quickly and easily do that.
Gotcha. All right, great. Do we have any questions over the line?
At this time, there are no questions.
All right. We've got a few through the web. One person asked, sort of when thinking about these things, is there a nonprofit rate? I don't know if this is something that you've talked about so far, but what's your how much does it cost to maintain something like this every year?
Yeah, so with Salesforce, and I'm glad someone asked that question. Salesforce offers the first 10 licenses of Salesforce for free. So if you have a staff of 10 people or less, it's free, and it's free every year. The only reason they would ever take it away is if you weren't actually using it. But that's part of Salesforce's model when they began was they call it the 1-1-1 model, that they'll give 1% of their equity, 1% of their people's time, and 1% of their product away to nonprofits. And they encourage that. They don't require that of their application providers, but they definitely encourage it. So there's quite a few. For instance, the data cleansing tool we use is free to us as a nonprofit, where some of the others have some discounts for nonprofits. After the first 10 licenses, then they have a nonprofit rate for the rest, which is basically their cost. So it's like $360 per license per year, which does add up, but still is nothing compared to what a corporation would be paying for it. But you do need to factor in, even though Salesforce is very user-friendly in setting it up, unless you really just are using it for basic things, because out of the box there is a nonprofit version of it that comes, and it's got the basics of what a lot of nonprofits need in terms of donor management and those kinds of things. But if you have any kind of complexities or just really want to make sure that it's set up right for you, I would highly encourage you to engage a consulting company, and Salesforce has some that they've kind of given the gold star to, and have said, these folks are, and in fact, the nonprofit partner, the first implementation we worked with was not ideal, but we're now working with an implementation partner who is a nonprofit themselves, and their whole mission is to provide online technology to environmental nonprofits. So, I mean, this is just right up their alley. And they're always, pioneering new products for that. I mean, that's part of their mission. So I would say, it's not, it's not completely free unless, like I said, you're using it for the most basic stuff. It is worth making that investment of somebody who really knows what they're doing versus you poking around for a while. I think that pays off in the long run. And then you just need to think about, again, do you need a person helping to maintain it, and, how much of their time and what skill set and all of that.
Great, thanks. And I think we have some questions that are about specific programs, and I want to hold those until after we've heard Joe present. But I did want to let folks know that there is a pretty good page on TechSoup, which you may know about.
Yeah.
It's for nonprofits and technology, and they have a guide on there that sort of compares several different CRM systems.
Yeah, they're a great resource, that TechSoup website. I highly encourage folks to check it out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paige. I think with that, we're going to close questions for now. We'll have another round of question and answers at the end. Joe can get some questions as well. We can put him right in the line of fire as well. So it's not just Paige. So next up, we have Joe Wilson, who's the Executive Director of Keep Greater Milwaukee Beautiful and Greening Milwaukee, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing the tree canopy in the city of Milwaukee through programs of environmental education, awareness, and advice. Joe has over 25 years of experience in fund development, fundraising, nonprofit management, marketing, and public relations. He is responsible for harnessing enthusiasm throughout Greater Milwaukee for a significant environmental improvement resource while building the internal infrastructure to support diverse activities, constituencies, and future aspirations. Joe holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Public Administration from St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, as well as a certificate in Sports Administration and Management from Texas A&M and a certificate in Strategic Planning from University of North Texas. He's a member of the National Urban and Community Forestry Advisory Council, also known as NUCFAC, appointed by the Secretary of Agriculture, and also of the Wisconsin Urban Forestry Council, and we are very lucky to have him with us today. Joe?
Thank you very much, Leland, and it's my pleasure to be on here sharing the stage with Paige. Paige did an outstanding job in giving you guys a great overview, so my job's going to be easy because she took care of the the groundwork of what needs to happen, certainly the things that you need to know about selecting a product. The product that I'm going to show is something that works best for small organizations such as Greening Milwaukee, and I think that was great to be able to have the two compare, not that we're picking one over the other, just kind of showing you the different applications and directions that organizations have gone. I work with a staff size of 2 people, but I work with a volunteer force of 50,000, and we're a volunteer-driven organization. So at any time in our office, we may have 10, 20 people working here. They all have a desk. They all have a computer. They all have jobs and duties. They may be interns from the area universities, and they may also be volunteers. And here lately with the job market the way it is, we have a lot of volunteers with great talent. So they're looking for time to connect and network, and our organization gives them that opportunity. We are a partner organization with Keep Greater Milwaukee Beautiful. I serve as their executive director as well for that organization. So together we collaborate on a lot of different projects and activities that have to do with trees, as well as with beautification, as well as with the environment and recycling. The interesting thing for us in selecting a product was that it was available and affordable. And the first thing in mind was that we were going to try to bring into vogue both organizations that I'm working for now, and each one of them had a large membership database. Each one were diverse in the way that they processed each other. So like Paige mentioned, we had spreadsheets just about everywhere for whatever the function was or whatever the activity was. So it was really important for us that we get everything that we needed at a price that we can afford, because where we began to look at pricing was when we looked at a consultant and said, you know, can you help us out? Now, I'll preface this. I come from the world not of trees, although that is my world now. I almost feel like something out of one of those movies. But I come from the technology world. I used to own software companies that did database and did a lot of programming, and so I have a sense of what it is that we needed and what we wanted. And there are so many things out there to be able to purchase, all the way from something very expensive that would do everything for you, but you require a lot of training, a lot of upgrading, and would eventually nickel and dime you, to something that would be a database that everyone could put their arms around. The other decision to be made was where do you want your data to be housed? In the case of the example that was given earlier, it's housed in a cloud or in up in the Salesforce's machine servers. In our case, we wanted it locally. We wanted it in our office, and we wanted it on our network, since we had invested a lot of money in that. And then we do have a cloud service that does our backup, so in case we lose our data. But we also wanted people to be able to network here locally, and also if you work from home, you could network into our office and take advantage of the server's capabilities that we had. So all in one single database was our solution we wanted. We wanted fundraising, membership, volunteer management. We wanted grant tracking. We wanted to do credit card processing, since we do accept credit cards for purchasing of tree gifts and of other products that we sell, rain barrels and composters and things like that. We wanted online donations. We wanted integration to forms that were easily made and can be posted on the web like within minutes. If we were going to do a class for training, or we wanted to do an event that required an entry fee, etc. We wanted custom reports, letters, labels, emails, and much more. When I did this research, I came up with a company that would provide that would make all this stuff easy to use, customizable, and had outstanding support, and we'd be able to be productive with our volunteers. Keep in mind that we're using volunteers and interns to operate our database. This is not something that would, we have a full-time staff person like Paige and staff people like her doing it. We had to have something that other people could do. The pricing was a big issue for us. This is certainly something that I wanted to deal with up front, because coming from this world, I know how this could get out of hand very quickly. So we went with this software, Total Info, and the single user was $7.95, and then you could see the rest of the prices on here. For multi-users, the training for volunteers or for the key people that I needed to train to be able to train other volunteers was quite inexpensive. It also could be done online, much like you're looking at this webinar today. If we had data conversion issues because you were migrating from another brand, another product into this particular product, that also was very affordable. And then there was a maintenance fee if you needed that annually. And then there was also the online donation solution, which also, again, requires getting aligned with a credit card company, getting a setup fee, and giving something back. If you're familiar with PayPal, it's basically that kind of setup that was put up. So getting the money out of the way, we wanted to make sure that there were going to be no risk and no other hidden fees, because this was almost a thing that when I first looked at it, it probably is too good to be true. Well, my answer to too good to be true, give me these kind of guarantees, and then I'll believe you. So we went with all this background here to get the money situation out of the way. Then we went into the fundraising features, because to us as a small organization, we needed to make sure that we could look like a big organization compared to the other groups in our town that were able to do these things. So our concentration was a lot on doing something with fundraising and making it relational to everything else that we did as well. Much like Salesforce does, this product does the same thing. So we had a family-oriented data model, and when we say family-oriented is that everybody was interrelated that was related, like the Kevin Bacon example. So we had all that. We had some dashboards because we wanted to have visuals. We wanted quick entries, instant acknowledgement. We wanted event management. We run an auction raffle here, and we also run a couple of other golf events and sponsorship events. We wanted all that to be in there as well. Major gifts that we get, grant management with reminders. We apply for thousands of grants here, and we needed something to be able to manage the grants as well and remind us when we needed to have key things happening. So advanced features like golf outings, like I mentioned. So the family-oriented example is pretty much where does all the funding come from. This is a screenshot of the giving screen on the donor profiles, and we're using Stephanie and Charlie Frankel as an example, and how much they each gave or where they gave and how that happened within that particular family. This particular product also gives you the total of in-kind hours down at the bottom of the screen, and also if they pledged over the year, they would show a pledge there for them, and we'd be able to send out some notices to them. But the volunteer hours are important for us as, like I said, a small organization. We want to make sure that the municipalities and the other people that we work with are well aware of the value of time that is given to programs and activities within the area. So we, let's see, we went there already. And we go here now to look at the development dashboard. And here you see all the relations between all of the people in that family. And it could be also with friends and with other associates within the company, and an opportunity to be able to see who these individuals are that are collectively together, as well as all their data, their affiliations down at the bottom where you see their donors, their G-bands, their Odeon parents, again, from what school they come from, with the theater, and then they volunteer. From this particular screen, you could hit any one of the buttons that you see there, and it'll get you to that area to continue to fill in the information that you needed to fill in for this one particular individual and or as a group. When we look at the development dashboard analysis, it then gives you overall. I mean, I'm always wanting to know how our cash flow is going to work. I use QuickBooks Online for that. This integrates with that software product as well. But I'm always wanting to know how we're doing with our membership, with our pledges and with our gifts and our prospects that are given us. So this gives us a really quick analysis on how we're doing from quarter to quarter, period to period, and what the average number of gifts are and how this is working for us. The next thing is looking at the other features that this has, for instance, the total entry, quick entry gift, time is of the essence with me and volunteers. I may only have them for a little bit of a time. This particular screen gives them a chance to be able to put in all the information, also know when the next payment is going to be due, as well as know how much amount is being given. So you don't have to go through too many screens to be able to put all that information in. It lets you do it at one sitting in one location. The next item here is the grant application tracking. That was very important to me, is when you get a grant, where does it come from, when was it initiated, when was there going to be the status of it, are we writing it now, did we get awarded that grant, how much are we expected to request or ask for, what is our likelihood of getting that grant, what is our percentage. And so these are all the facts that we put into our database here so we can know exactly what to expect and keep up with these grant applications that we put out. A big thing for us that just happened was the integrated online donations. That's becoming a big need by different organizations. More and more people are now comfortable being able to give their $10, $25, $30, $100 donations online. So there was a way of being able to do that. We wanted to integrate it not only into our database, we also wanted to integrate it into our QuickBooks. So we also wanted to make sure we had a low setup and monthly fee because, again, credit card companies can really take you for a ride if you don't watch which one you're working with. So all of that became a big issue with us, as well as that having a compliant solution with the Internet and also with the security level of receiving monies over the Internet. So we went with that program. And this program now gives you an example of an online donation form that can occur now, which is integrated into our total info, and it gives the person the feel and information about your organization and an opportunity for them to give you a gift. Volunteer management was huge. As I said, we're 50,000 strong in our community, and we do a variety of things. We are the largest nonprofit organization in Milwaukee with a volunteer database of 50,000. So we're asked by a lot of people to do a lot of things that are related to not only trees, but the water, the environment, education in schools, et cetera. So the tracking and the availability of those folks was quite important. It was also important to be able to track them to what companies they came with or what schools or what entities they were affiliated with. We needed to record the actual volunteer time as part of the requirement for Keep Greater Milwaukee Beautiful. And as an affiliate of Keep America Beautiful, that's a key thing for them. So they wanted to know that information. We wanted to be able to schedule volunteers and send reminders by email. We wanted to track the cumulative hours for recognition, both by individual and their groups. The volunteer sign-up from our website via our form site product that we use as well was important. So we had advanced volunteer search going there. So here you can see a fast volunteer entry. We have an event coming up. We can get our volunteers very quickly on the computer, and we could have them look up the individual or quickly register them, tell them what the event's going to be, say a fall cleanup, what time is going to happen, and then these folks can be reminded via email that they committed to being part of the program. We then can also note on here whether they came to the event or not, and be able to take notice of the ones that constantly opt not to do that. The membership management was important. We don't quite have a membership program here, so we only have corporate membership. So our membership database is really small. It's maybe around 40 people. But those are the ones that write checks that are starting at $1,000 up to $50,000. So it was important to keep them as members of the organization. Individual donations are just looked at as individual donations. They're not a member of the organization. And so that was important for us to keep up with those kind of donors. And so we have a membership screen for them, whether they were an event sponsor or a production sponsor or whatever it is that we were doing, whether they were a new member or not, and then who they were referred to, how they came about, et cetera. So that was very important for us to be able to keep our corporate sponsors and do corporate maintenance on them annual basis. The helpers that we had here and time savers for us was, again, a QuickBook interface. That's the software we use for accounting. Enter the transaction once was important. A one-click batch for printing labels and envelopes was important. The new record wizards, because we were working with volunteers, we needed wizards to make it easy for them to just go transitioning right into the projects that we asked them to do. Reminders and critical notes were important for our project managers that were in charge of different activities throughout the year. Easily configure the system to our needs was critical. I didn't want to fit into a square hole if I'm a round peg. So that was important for it to be able to fit with us and not fit with the programmers that were involved with this. Quick addresses and maps, you know, just a bell and whistle. Obviously, very important in today's world is to reduce your mail costs. Blast group emails were important. And because, I harp that I'm a volunteer-driven organization, the built-in help, user manual, and tutorials were very important, as sometimes we give the keys to the car to a volunteer and we say, here, drive it. But here, you need to read the manual and the tutorial so you know what we're going to do with here. And integrating wealth prospecting via partnership with Wealth Engine is not something that I use right now, but it is a capability of this product in case you're looking for prospects in the sponsorship field. The low cost of ownership was the big thing. Less training, higher productivity was important. Time savings, as I said, vastly simplify the processes. Save on postage, which we have totally done in our organization. And send donor acknowledgments and receipts via email as quickly as we receive the check, or actually before we even cash the check, we send a thank you and then an acknowledgment. And maintain accurate, high-quality data. In general, if we wanted to do what is done in California with the inventory of trees, this product can handle that as well. It's just treated as a commodity that you would have. We do not do that, just to let you know. Our inventory of trees is not as important for us. We do have a database for it in here where we say where we placed a tree in somebody's house. Because the difference between us and I guess a lot of the tree organizations is we do not plant trees on public right-of-ways. We plant them on private property. So we have the names of every one of the donors who have, every one of the recipients who said, I'd like to have a tree on my property. Well, we give you a tree, we put you in our database. So that's sort of the difference there. So in a way, I know where my trees are, and I don't know much more about where they are. I know what species went in there because we want to be diverse about that. But because we don't plant on the right-of-ways or in public areas, I'm more in knowing that that address has a tree. Now I have that in my database, and I can look it up. Again, this program is something that is easy to use. It's housed in your office. I'm not against the people that do things in clouds. Everything else in our organization, though, that we do here, our emails and several other products that we use are in the clouds. That's a great thing. The difference with this one is that we wanted to have a database, as was said earlier, that is not going to go away anytime soon. So it's based on Microsoft Access database. And then we also wanted to make sure that we have control of our data at all times, and that gives us that opportunity to do that. As far as help is concerned, the help desk is very reliable, very quickly, and what they actually do is what several other organizations are doing now. They actually take control of your computer, and they can go and browse around in your computer and see what the problem is if you call in for help. That's all I have to present, and I appreciate the time and opportunity of you listening and dialing in. So we'll go to Leland again.
Thanks so much, Joe. It's a great compliment to what I want to quickly open the lines. Maybe we have time for one or two questions. So, Nikki?
If you would like to ask a question, please press *1, unmute your phone, record your name clearly. To withdraw your question, please press *2. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1.
And we don't have any waiting in line from last time, right?
No, we do not.
I guess the big concerns for me, Joe, would be for small organizations that are looking to move to products like this. You mentioned a lot of the important factors, price, which I think everyone really appreciated hearing about. Another concern for me would be making sure that all the current info that I have gets in there, and sort of the time, the possibility of losing or corrupting information as I'm transferring it. And I saw that on one of your slides you said there was import all your donor information into Total Info, so I just wanted to ask if that had been successful and how you went about approaching that.
Yeah, the importing of the current data the way you have it, and most people have it in a format that is importable into other platforms, from various platforms into different products such as Salesforce or even the Total Info. The corrupt data and things like that you're talking about really has to do with doing your homework up front and looking at the data that you want to bring in. There's no chance of losing it unless what you're bringing in is not going to be compatible with what fields you want to put it in. So that wasn't really a big concern. They have done a tremendous amount of, all of the companies do a tremendous amount of data conversion, but losing the data is not, that's happening less and less, in the fact that the first time you look at your own personal data before you go to importing it, you qualify it to make sure that what you want to bring in is information you're going to use and find useful.
Great. And I think you've both attested to the benefits of investing in some quality programs and products. Do you think maybe you could just throw out the names of one or two others you considered, just so that people have the names in the air and they can go search these out?
Initially, when I was doing my, when I was first doing the research for the organization, certainly at the top of the book was Razor's Edge and Blackbaud. But when you start looking at the dollars that you spend for that kind of product, you're going to spend a lot of money for a lot of material that, frankly, a lot of other programs could do. Salesforce was certainly up for consideration for me at the time. We've been using EasyWare Total Info now going on 6 years. So at the time that Salesforce was up 6 years ago, when we were looking, they weren't as robust as they are today. Today, they certainly would be a group that I would consider greatly, as opposed to where I was 6 years ago. 6 years ago, there were products like ACT. There were products sitting out there. I can't think of the third one, but it's still very popular out there. So I went into the nonprofit areas and looked at several of those products. The problem with all of those at the time were that they wouldn't all accommodate the things that Paige and I kind of brought out today. In other words, making it fit for our use and not necessarily for their use, or having to change a field to make it fit for their field. They weren't as flexible as what they are today.
Yeah, and I do want to mention, we kind of looked at some of the similar ones, Donor Perfect had some kind of, volunteer management, but, you're always compromising something. And again, the landscape changes so quickly in a couple of years. So one of the products that was just in development that didn't make sense for us at the time because they weren't far enough along, but now is out there, is Convio has built a product on top of the Force.com platform, which is what Salesforce is built on, and so it's using that a lot of the things that Salesforce has that are really strong, but using Convio, who really understands nonprofits. Now, I don't know the pricing structure for that, but that is another one that maybe offers more support specific to nonprofits, but still is utilizing a lot of the great features of Salesforce that might be worth looking at as well.
Awesome. Thank you both to both of our presenters. I think we're right at the top of the hour now, so I want to wrap things up, but certainly if folks have more questions, you can email me, and I know that Paige and Joe would be happy to answer questions. I want to let everyone know that this recorded session and the presentations, as well as a resource list of related items, will be available in about 1 week, and we will email that to everyone who completes our brief survey, which you can see right here. So if you have a minute, please take a couple seconds to fill out this survey. It will help us as we prepare programs and services to make sure that they are really relevant to you and your interests. Our next webcast is on October 21st, the third Thursday of the month, and that's the rally for the 2010 annual meeting and national conference, which is taking place in Philly this November, so we hope to see everybody there. Again, here's the survey, so just take 2 seconds. I want to thank Joe and Paige, two excellent presenters, for taking some time out of their afternoon today, or I guess morning if you're out in LA, and to everyone who participated this afternoon, and also our sponsors, the Home Depot Foundation and the USDA Forest Service. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Leland.
Thank you. Thank you, Leland. Thank you, Paige.
Thank you, Deb. Bye.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.